Day for the Ethiopian community today. Here on the 29th of Cheshvan, we are in. It's holiday Sigd, respectively, over here. And I think it's got other names also. Sigdas, Mehela is one of them, or Amata Sao. This is it's one of the unique holidays of the Better Israel, the Ethiopian Jewish community, and celebrated right at the end of the Hebrew month of Cheshvan on the 29th day, Chavtet Cheshvan, respectively, or some people call it Mar Cheshvan. And since 2008, this specific day has been marked as an official Israeli state holiday. Very interesting enough. So congratulations, everyone. At one stage in time, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know when, maybe it was celebrated on 29th of Kislev, but I think there was a calendar reform in the mid-19th century. It was moved to its present day, 50 days actually marks after the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, respectively, which is obviously on the 10th of Tishrei. Now, what does the word Sigd, first of all, means? Itself is Ge'ez, or G-E-E-Z. What does it mean? Prostration. And it's related, I think, to Imperial Aramaic, Siged, respectively, to prostrate oneself. Now, the Semitic root, SGD, is the same as in Meskid, one of the two Better Israels, let's say, terms for synagogue, these forms of synagogue itself. I think etymologically related, I think masjid or mosque in Arabic, or place of prostration. And let's just say the vernaculars and the various different Hebrew verbs and roots in of itself. Liskod, for example, to worship. Now, what's the significance? First of all, we can delve more into them. There's various different, I think, oral traditions about the origin of Sigd. Now, one tradition goes all the way back to the 6th century, in the time of King Jebra Meskel of Aksum, who was a son of King Caleb, if I'm not mistaken. Very interesting. Now, I think there was a war between Jews and Christians and ended, and both communities separated from each other. So that's very interesting. And I think another source traced it to the 15th century as a result of, unfortunately, it was anti-Semitism all throughout by Christian emperors. One other tradition states that the Jews in Persia and Iran, following the destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash, the first temple, would climb a mountain, face Jerusalem, and pray to be allowed back. And I think the first mention of Sigd is from the 15th century, respectively. There's different sources, just using Wikipedia as a source over here on this, let's say, joyous Ethiopian day in itself. Now, this day symbolizes acceptance of the Torah. The Kehenet, which are the word of a priest, have also maintained the tradition of the holiday rising as a result, unfortunately, of persecution by Christian kings, I think, during which the Kehenet retreated into the wilderness to appeal to God for his mercy. Additionally, I think they sought at that point in time to unify the Better Israel and prevent them from abandoning Heyamonot, the various different laws and traditions under, unfortunately, those persecution. They looked towards the book of Nehemiah, one of the books, and said Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim, which took inspiration from Ezra's, let's say, presentment of the book of the Law of Moses before the assembly of Israel, after it had been lost during the Babylonian exile, respectively. Now, friends, anyone tuning in live, happens to be an Ethiopian Jewish festival today here on the 29th of Cheshvan. So for everyone celebrating a fantastic day, and we're exploring a bit about the history within regards to this very significant day here in the Ethiopian calendar. So if anyone's new to the channel, please subscribe and welcome to our community. Now, while it's widely thought that the Sigd is a holiday particular to Ethiopian Jews, I think a famous rabbi who is, I think, one of the head Israeli Ethiopian rabbis of nowadays, Rabbi Sharon Shalom, posits that it was once known to all Jews, but was preserved only by the Ethiopian Jewish community. And he will actually base this on Shir Hashirim Rabbah, number 7, number 4. We will speak about Rabbi Sharon in a minute, but what's he basing it on over here? Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, by rights, the 8th day of assembly, Shmini Atzeret, naturally, in the festivals of Sukkot, after an interval of 50 days, Shavuot follows Pesach. Obviously, we know there's 50-day break between Pesach to Shavuot, and hence the Sfirat Omer. But since at the 8th day of assembly, summer passes into autumn, the time is not suitable for traveling. To what may this be compared? A king had several married daughters, is what's quoted over here, I think, from Rav Yeshua ben Levi. Some living nearby, while others were living a long way away. One day they all came to visit their father, the king. And said the king, those who are living nearby are able to travel at any time, but those who live at a distance are not able to travel at any time. So while they are all here with me, let us make one feast for all of them and rejoice with them. So with regards to the festival of Shavuot, which comes when, let's say, winter is passing into summer, obviously, God says the season is fit for traveling. But at time of Shmini Atzeret, which is at the culmination of Sukkot, and also a period where obviously summer passes over to winter, to autumn, as obviously we start saying Mashiv Aruach during that specific day. The roads are dusty and hard for walking. Hence, it is not separated by an interval of 50 days. Said the Holy One, blessed be he. These are not days for traveling. So while they are here, let us make all of them one festival and rejoice. Therefore, Moses admonishes Israel, saying to them, on the 8th day, you shall have a solemn journey. I think basing this on the book of Numbers, I think chapter 29 in the book of Bamidbar, in verse number 35. I believe that is actually in the Parashat Pinchas itself, respectively. We're going to speak more with regards to today, but there's various events taking place all throughout this time period itself. It's a very joyous time period, very, very joyous day. It's actually the first time I think we're actually dedicating a video to this significant day in the Ethiopian calendar here on this series of our challenge. So welcome to everyone that is coming in, and welcome to our community. So we can say more with regards to Sigd. I think it was traditionally, I think there was commemoration of appeals made by the Kesim. Now, what's a Kesim? I think these are like the spiritual leaders. It's like a Kahen or Kohen in the Better Israel community, respectively. Something that we have to point out. So hopefully, we're going to speak more about this when we do our video within regards to the Ethiopian Jewish community. Hopefully, we're going to record at one stage. I think it's a time of mass gathering. The Better Israel community would make pilgrimages to an area of Midraro, or Haro, or Wosto Sega. I think various different locations, marking locations of relief from Christian persecution. Unfortunately, there was anti-Semitism everywhere. Every year to reaffirm themselves as a religious community, they would ascend up the mountain, ritually commemorating the Torah of the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai, very similar to Shavuot. Today, during the celebration, members of the community fast. They do a Tanit. They recite the book of Tehillim, Psalms, and they gather in Jerusalem, where Kesim read from the Orit, the Okta Tiuach. The ritual is followed by the breaking of the fast, dancing, and general, let's say, revelry itself, respectively, over here. Now, I think February 2008, the MK at the time, Knesset member, someone named Uriel Yehuda Ariel, who was, I think, a Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, and he was a member of the Jewish Home, that political party, submitted legislation to Knesset in order to establish Sigd as an Israeli national holiday. And in July 2008, the Knesset officially added the Ethiopian Sigd holiday to the list of state holidays. According to an opinion piece in the Jerusalem Post, while the Kesim and Better Israel rabbis are pleased that Sigd became an official Israeli state holiday in 2008, they would also like the holiday to become an integral part of the yearly Jewish holiday cycle and be embraced by more Jews, at least in Israel, rather than remain a holiday primarily celebrated by the Jewish community from Ethiopia. One thing I can say to the community over here, we're definitely on our channel celebrating this today. I think the Israeli President Isaac Herzog celebrated Sigd with the Ethiopian Jewish community on the Armon Hanatziv promenade in November 2021. And in his speech, he hailed Sigd as a holiday of victory and praised the Ethiopian Jewish community for its proactive efforts to immigrate to Israel. Obviously, we're going to speak more about that when we the historic video within regards to the community stuff. Let's say a bit about Rabbi Sharon Shalom, who we just quoted about a few minutes ago. He's also a doctor, I believe. He's a rabbi, he's a lecturer, he's a Jewish author, and the rabbi of one of Tzoa's open communities in Kiryat Gat, respectively. I think it's a community settlement and a regional center in southern Israel, located in Heve Eshkol, respectively, and falls under the jurisdiction in this area of Tzoa, of the Eshkol Regional Council. So he was actually born, let's say a word with regards to that. He was born in Zoaid Tesfei, in a Jewish community in the northern Ethiopia, and he works currently as a rabbi in the Merkaz Shapira, or Me'ofir, a special program for Ethiopian immigrants. He lectures in Jewish ritual and tradition on the Honor Academic College in Israel. So that is, I think, very much based in Kiryat Honor, if I'm not mistaken, and wrote from Sinai to Ethiopia, the halachic work and Ethiopian Jewish thought. Let's just explore a few words with regards to him. He was actually born in the year 1973 in Ethiopia. So here at time of recording, he's about 52 years of age. In a small Jewish village located north of Ethiopia, I think 20 Jewish families live together separately from the Christian population surrounding them. He listened to his grandfather that God would one day rejoin Jews around the world, and this biblical promise, let's say, led him and a friend to leave the village to move to Jerusalem only at the age of 7. And very, very interesting. I think in Jerusalem, when the Ethiopian civil war erupted, he found another opportunity to move to Jerusalem. Israel's parliament passed a law permitting Israel to receive Jews of Ethiopia. When he was 8, his mother sent him to join a group of Jewish refugees leaving for Israel. 1 year after arriving in Israel, Rabbi Shalom was misinformed that that his family had passed away in Israel, just in Ethiopia. This I'm recording from saying from Wikipedia. However, 2 years later, they arrived in Israel. So this is what Wikipedia states over. That's interesting. He would be an officer in IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces. He would actually learn, I believe, at Yeshivat Haaretz Zion, a place we visited on this channel before. And he was a student of the famous Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Aaron Lichtenstein and Rabbi Yehuda Amital. And Rosh Kollel, Rabbi Shlomo Halevi, respectively, another famous rabbi. And he was ordained as a rabbi in the year 2001. At Bar Ilan University, he completed a doctorate in Jewish philosophy, so he was very, very well decorated. And it was in 2012 where he published the book From Sinai to Ethiopia, the halachic work and Ethiopian Jewish thought. And he's been very vocal with regards to trying combating racism, especially against Ethiopian Jews in Israel. He's also the author of the Dialogues of Love and Fear, which was published in 2021. I think his wife, Rabbanit Avital, is actually from Switzerland, if I'm not mistaken, also a therapist and social worker. I think they are based in Kiryat Gat, if I'm not mistaken, and they have 5 children. So he's currently the head Ethiopian rabbi, and he's been very celebratory, let's just say, with regards to this specific festival itself. We can talk more about what this actually is and talk about the 50 days there is between the 29th of Cheshvan to Yom Kippur. It's respectively. Now, it's actually interesting. Traditionally, members of the Better Israel community fasted on Sigd. We did state before, some do. Apparently, they don't just read Psalms, the Okta, they're the 5 books of Moses. They will also, I think, learn about Joshua, Judges, and Ruth, and recite various different Psalms. One of the goals of it is for the rebuilding and having the 3rd Bet Hamikdash also, respectively. It's connected to Yom Kippur, obviously, because hence the 50 days, let's just say, a break between those 2 specific days. That's something that we have to point out over here. So that's very, very interesting. Anyone joining live, welcome to our community as we are speaking about a very fantastic day here on the Ethiopian calendar. So that's something very, very important to point out. And just to go back a little bit with regards to the history of Jews of Ethiopian community, just reading now from the H website. Anyone tuning in live, please subscribe to our channel now. We have fantastic content here. So short history of the Jews of Ethiopia. I think I'm just reading an article here by Lauren Adilev from H.com. After the Romans destroyed the Bet Mikdash, Holy Temple in Jerusalem in 70 Common Era, many Jews were taken as slaves to the vast territory of the Roman Empire, and others left the land, wandering and broken. A group made its way through southern Israel into Sinai, and then into Egypt, through modern-day Sudan, and finally into Ethiopia, where they originally settled in the Gondar region, which is northwest in the mountains. And I think the author of this H.com article, very, very informative one, would speak to a woman from the Better Israel community, and I think Almaz Meyomo Jano, if I'm not mistaken. And I think she was a young girl when she arrived in Israel, possibly maybe about 30 years prior to the article was written. And she would arrive with her family in 1991, and she lived in Jerusalem, let's just say, and working as bringing spirit to the Better Israel community in of itself, performing, and was really giving over let's just say, speaking about various different dances she was educating the community to. There was this, and she would explain to the author here of this article that the community, I think, in Ethiopia would live in villages separate from the general population and would hold on dearly to Jewish traditions, putting their own spin on various practices. For example, quoted over in this article, instead of having separate Passover dishes, they would smash the plates, remix the clay, and bake new dishes. Also, apparently on Shabbat, people always wore white clothes to reflect the purity of Shabbat and to show that they didn't work in the fields on that day. And she would actually, just going back to the transition of moving to Israel, the Beta Israel community were cut off completely from world Jewry. I think someone named Jacques Fejtlovich from the Lodz in Poland went to Paris in 1900 and studied Amharic, I believe. And he heard about the Jews in Ethiopia when they went to visit the community numerous times. And after the Second World War, he pursued the Jewish Agency to start assisting the community. When the Jewish Agency started activities, the Beta Israel learned about the 1948 establishment of Medinat Israel, of Israel, the state of Israel. The Beta Israel waited patiently for the Israeli government to recognize their community and acknowledge that they were Jews. A Beta Israel rabbi is called a kes, as we mentioned about various occasions before. In Amharic, the plural is a questorch, if I'm not mistaken. In Hebrew, it's kesim. The rabbis serve as community leaders. When they saw that the Israeli government wasn't necessarily being so helpful, especially initially, they told the people to start moving to the Jewish Agency compound in Gonda. And I think it was en masse, many people. They were a force that the Israeli government had to recognize. And since the early 1950s, Jewish agencies has assisted more than 95,000 Ethiopians with their immigration to Israel. This figure might be larger at present. I'm not sure when this article was actually written itself. It must have been several years ago, interesting enough. So that's very interesting. Let's speak a bit more with regards to the Sigd festival over here. We'll speak about a few of the Kesim also. At one stage in time, I would really like to record a video on the entire history of the Ethiopian community. So watch your space within regards to that. Everyone that you're new to the channel, please subscribe. We've got fantastic content over here on our community, so please hit the subscribe button. The holiday of Sigd, obviously we know throughout their time in Gondar, these Jews yearned to return to Jerusalem, as it was expressed obviously by the Nevi'im inside the Torah, the prophets. And to affirm their connection to the holy city, the community would gather on a hilltop 50 days after Yom Kippur. They turned towards Jerusalem, lifted their heads out with voices, and the Kasim, the Kwastoch, led them in song and prayer using the Ge'ez, an ancient language, expressing their connection to and love for Jerusalem, their love for God and His Torah, and their desire to return. Very interesting. So just such a joyous festival in itself, and obviously since 2008, that's when it became a significant day in the Israeli calendar. It's a day, as we stated before, of fasting, praying, feasting. Also in Aramaic, it's known as sked, which means prostration. Just as we prostrate during the prayers of Yom Kippur, the community prostrates at certain times during the prayers, respectively. Now, I think community leaders, for example, today they have buses where people come from all over Israel. As we stated before, the ceremony is in Armon Hanatziv. It's a promenade which looks over the old city and the site of the Temple Mount. And the Questoch, as we said before, will dress in white robes with their heads wrapped in white turbans, hold colorful umbrellas for shade while some men clutch Torah scrolls. They stand with their hands outstretched and sing a series of prayers for about 2 hours. There's also festive atmosphere. People are walking around and catch up with friends, respectively. I think various different groups, especially connected to youth movements, including Bnei Akiva, for example, and many other people would join in with these celebrations. And today now it's an Israeli holiday, not just an Ethiopian holiday. Let's explore a bit of the foods which people have, the traditional foods of the Ethiopian community. I think that usually many of these events will start with a traditional Ethiopian coffee ceremony. Sounds very good. I'm tempted to go there now. Very interesting. And I think they make drinks made from herbal infusion. It was very popular in Ethiopia. And some people will replace it by beer, have it drinking beer over here, or tej honey wine, which is, I think, similar to mead. The foods in Ethiopia at that point in time when they was limited to some degree. They would eat lentils and injera, were eaten daily. Chicken was added on Shabbat, and a beef stew was eaten on holidays like Sigd, respectively. I think what is injera, friends? Looks very interesting. Just looking at a picture of it as we speak. It's a bread made from teff, a high protein, gluten-free grain common in Ethiopia. It is a flatbread eaten at most meals. It is soft and spongy, and it pairs perfectly with lentils and stews of Ethiopian cuisine. I think as a general thing, it actually takes 3 days to make, but it's very, very interesting. I think there's some excellent recipes you can find, especially on various different places out there. So they say Sigd is celebrated for an entire month leading up to the actual day, and is an opportunity to raise Ethiopian Jewish visibility and educate Israeli Jews about Better Israel customs. So we could speak more. There were many rabbis connected to the Better Israel communities, and we'll investigate about that. And we'll speak more about that when we our video, Bezrat Hashem, on the Ethiopian Jewish communities. That's something that we have to point out here. We're going to explore some of the Ethiopian rabbis also there, some of the famous kesses that have been all throughout Jewish history, because I think it's very, very important to speak about that. And then we're going to wrap it up to then. And then hopefully in the next few weeks, the plan is to record a video or an entire history video on the Ethiopian Jewish community. Now, the first Kes to speak about, Kes Hadnat Tikveya. We spoke about him. He lived between 1923 to 2020. I think the 22nd of Cheshvan actually will be his Hilula. He was one famous rabbi from Ethiopia that we should point out. Another great rabbi that we should point out. A rabbi named Kahanat Kes Brahan. So I don't think we spoke about him per se. His Hilula is actually on the 27th of Kislev. He passed away in 1984. And another famous rabbi, I think, who actually came, I think, to Eretz Israel, to the land of Israel, I think maybe in the mid-1950s, if I'm not mistaken. He was another famous rabbi of the Ethiopian Jewish community. And another one, rabbi we spoke about, Rabbi Kes Abba Yitzhak Yasso, between 1900 to 1995. Now, the great Rabbi Kes Ailon Menashe Adgo, I hope I pronounced the name correctly. He passed away only about 7 years ago in 2018 on the 2nd of Shvat. He was born actually in the year 1933. Another famous Rabbi, Kes Elias Ma'arat, who Chavtal Kisel, the day before Hanukkah, will mark his Hilula. He lived between 1931 to 2002. Another famous Rabbi, Kes Bida Galin Beinaisai. I think we actually recorded a video about him. It was his Hilula only 2 days ago on the Chav 9 Cheshvan. He passed away 21 years ago in 2004. He actually was born in 1915. Kes Vavasht Eitbag, I think he lived between 1906 and 1994. And more recent Rabbi Kes Malka Azaria Yahayis, between 1918 to 2011. Zain Elul is his Hilula. And Kes Menashe Zmara, he passed away in 1998, 22nd of Tishrei, actually the last day of Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret, happened to be his Hilula. Rabbi Kes Bohu Baruch, between 1908 to 1975. So much has been said about all of this over here. It's a special edition. Anyone tuning in live marks, let's just say the dates, the periods of the Sigd Jewish festival for the Ethiopian Jewish community today. There are other famous rabbis, I think Rabbi Chaim Nachum Effendi, that would take close investigation with regards to the Ethiopian community. Also, someone named Yosef Halevi, a famous man in the 1800s, who actually recorded a video about, or we spoke about him. He was a Turkish, let's say, scholar. He was a historian. He will also do a lot of investigations within regards to the Ethiopian community, which we also have to point out. So very, very interesting. And I think Yosef Halevi actually himself passed away in the year 1827. So very, very interesting. And it's just a live video here as it marks this important day here on the Jewish calendar. So very interesting. And wish you all well. Thanks for watching. We're going to explore more with regards to the famous various rabbis. Also, Rabbi Yosef Hadana, who I mentioned about before, was the chief rabbi of the Ethiopian community in Israel, and really supported Aliyah of various remaining community members on initially points of view. So that's very interesting. So there's so much more to learn about. So I really hope we're going to record what at some point in the future the video within regards to the history of Ethiopian Jewry. But wishing you all well, everyone celebrating. We should all be celebrating and acknowledging this day. Please subscribe to the channel, join our community. I wish you a happy Sigd, everyone. Take care. Thanks for watching. Thank you.